Welcome, everybody. Happy Tuesday. I just say happy Trance Tuesday because that's what we're about to get into. Let's get grounded and say hello. Hey, Dell. How you doing?
Tired.
Yeah.
And over here in the New Jersey area, we got lots of snow, so lots of work out there. So I'm really present and grounded because I was in the snow ground.
Yeah, I hear you. Totally hear you. Well, welcome everybody. Love to introduce you to Lorna, who is not only super duper amazingly talented, but also just an amazing confidant, friend, associate, just a beautiful model for what's possible when we empower our community, when we're in our truth and we stand for what it is that we believe in. There's so much that I can share about Lorna, but I'll let us get into that conversation organically. First, what I'd like to say is that I see we both got the purple memo. That's pretty cool. And we're honored to have you on the second day of Black History Month. So I'd love to just start with, what does that mean to you, Lorna?
Well, first of all, I really want to extend my deepest gratitude to you and Dell for having me. This is a wonderful opportunity. I look forward to engaging with your audience and maybe with others who perhaps would not think that some of the things that I'm interested in might be of interest. So I'm looking forward to, shall we say, expanding and really connecting with those that are interested in what you have to say, and definitely about magic, our daily magic, because in many ways it's quite magical that I'm here with you today for a number of reasons. Now, to your question, what was your question? Which oftentimes I admit I do kind of veer left and right and lose the focus, and I owe that to my Gemini personality structure. I know I said it on purpose for Dell because I know that's his. But I have also Cancerian traits, so I tend to be a little bit more grounded than the usual Gemini.
That's funny because I'm a Gemini, she's a Cancer. So
I know. That's exactly why I said it. Something I can remember.
Perfect.
Yes. But now it's coming to me. Black history.
Yes.
Now, here's the thing, and I'm going to be very honest with you about this because I was even thinking about it today, in that I'm a little bit conflicted about designating a particular month to focus on Black history, because I think, especially now in the era that we're living in, where both the presence and contributions of people of African descent is being recognized, as well as, shall we say, the disparity or the disparate treatment of people of color throughout the United States, historically to presently. So this is something right now that we need to focus on daily. However, I think, on the other hand, the fact that in terms of social media and television, print media, all of those types of things, the fact that they do have a particular date or month that they designate is important, because it kind of forces the issue, forces the ability to focus on the presence and contributions and needs, and, as I said, the disparities in treatment of people of color here in the United States, and quite frankly, throughout the world. So, for example, I'm not giving the View kudos today, but I happened to just quickly see them before we came on. And during Black History Month, they focus on really an unsung hero every day of their show. And today they focused on a gentleman by the name of Mr. Cotto, Cotto. Sometime, I think, in the 18th century, that was a marvelous educator and really put forth the idea, the importance of education for the emancipated people. They also had Dr. Fendi on, who wrote the book How to Be an Anti-Racist. And I have to tell you, I'm a particular fan of his because he puts forward the idea that if you are not actively pursuing in some way to be an anti-racist, then you're not really addressing racism. And I think that particular perspective communicates to people everyone has a responsibility in ridding our country of this horrific disease. And that if you're not getting up off your duff and addressing it, then you're not doing what you need to do. You may not be part of the silent majority when it comes to racism.
Got it. Yeah, based on what you're saying here, I can feel like the conflicting feelings that, that I have as well. That part of me that's like, well, I really don't want to be anti anything. I want to be for something, instead of against something. So it just, it starts to just bring awareness to what we really are doing, how we really are feeling. And, maybe that's how we're feeling in the moment. Maybe that's the stance that we're taking in the moment. Maybe there's a balance, between pro and anti and, what that even means in that internal dynamic. But what I'm thankful for is for you bringing it up, especially in the context of what we're here to talk about today. And I just want to start off with what I know. What I know is you've got a thriving group. Can you tell us about that group and what the mission of that group is?
Do you mean the Facebook group?
Yeah.
I'm the administrator. Oh, thank you. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm so glad you brought it up because we, in that group, and by the way, the name of the group is Mediums of African Ancestry. And just to tell you about the name, because I've recently kind of come under some mild fire about the name, because the group is not just about mediumship. And that is by choice. But we like the name and we see mediums as a wider understanding of what being a medium. A medium is also a facilitator, is also a liaison. Chemists use a medium to look at various chemicals and bacteria and so forth. So I admit that it's not just about mediumship, and for some people that was a turnoff. But be that as it may, we have an expanded idea about mediumship and what mediums can do. For example, one woman was very, very interested in becoming a member. However, her mediumship or the way in which she enacts being a medium is through the creation of what she calls comfort baskets. She's very, very talented in creating beautiful depictions of how people can heal from grief. And what she does when she develops these baskets is she gives them to people to help them soothe their grief. So in a very lovely, I think, and beautiful way for me, this particular woman belongs in the group. She's interested in what we have to talk about, and she's being a healer in a very special and wonderful way. But be that as it may, my background and experience has been focused on developing my skills, the personal transformation that goes with moving forward in a spiritual practice. However, in the course of my very vast education and training, and I have happily trained and have been trained and worked with the top-notch medium practitioners, spiritual practitioners that are world-renowned. And I say that proudly because I learned a lot from them, and it was a wonderful opportunity, including many of the tutors that are associated with the Spiritual National Union, which is a part of the Arthur Findlay College in Stansted, England. I also am a member of the Spiritualists National Union and also the Spiritualists National Union International, and went through the hard knock credentialing program, which I continue to experience. But I will tell you, in the course of that education, and in the course of me even saying to many of these stellar, world-renowned teachers, when I said to them, gee, in the course of the development of modern spiritualism, I haven't had the opportunity to see people that look like me. And I'm certain that God or spirit or whoever you see as your higher power didn't just select white people to be part of spiritualism and mediumship and spiritual practices. So one of them told me to seek a name of someone, and I tried on my own. And then someone else recommended a book. And in the book, this is Spiritualism by Maurice Barbonell. And Barbonell is a famous trance medium journalist, a really fabulous in terms of mediumship. He had one mention of a Black woman in one of his seances at the end of the book, but nothing was really said about her. Nothing was really talked about in terms of who she was she also a medium, and so on and so forth. So I decided that there must be people of color that were involved in modern spiritualism. Now, I'm talking about from the 1850s onward, because we know that many of the indigenous cultures that we are part of very much were involved in the practice of various spiritual practices, including mediumship. But I was interested further on in the 1848, which is the birth of modern spiritualism with the Fox sisters in Hinesville. So again, this has been my part of, I think, my purpose in life or my karma or whatever, because the same type of thing happened to me throughout undergraduate, well, to some extent high school, but undergraduate and graduate school. I think this is something where I'm being used by spirit to look at, to examine, to research, to seek the contributions and presence of people of color in the world and in life and in everything we do. We know that we are here, good, bad, and indifferent. Yes, we were enslaved. Yes, we were brought here unwittingly and unwillingly. But once we're here, we, in many respects, if you look at the history, we very much tried to make the best of difficult situations. We studied, we worked, we learned, we were thrifty, we continued religious practices and spiritual practices that were part of our background and experience in Mother Africa. But anyway, to make a long story short, we wanted to have an organization, a way that people of diverse backgrounds could come and begin to learn about the presence and contributions of African Americans and people of color, both in spiritualism and spiritual practices. And the group has morphed or developed or evolved even so much more than that. Of course, it's a learning community, and we don't do advertisements and things like that, people selling their products, because we very much wanted to focus on learning whatever that means to people. We also have a self-help component and mutual aid component, because I think that many mediums of color needed a place that they could network and bond with one another, because they often found themselves as the only one in many of the classes and many of the workshops where the subject matter was discussed. So it is also, I think, an important networking and self-help. Besides that, we sponsor all sorts of different workshops and events. As you know, we recently had Dr. Margarita Gilry, who is a professor of religion, who has devoted much of her life and experiences to researching the lives of African American spiritualists and mediums with top-notch, incontrovertible research. So she had a wonderful presentation. We do things on wellness. We also sponsor what we call Messages from Ancestors, which is a different spin on the usual demonstration of mediumship or demonstration of survival. We also have lots of different topics, such as Black Lives Matter. We focused quite a bit on that and had a marvelous a panel of people that talked about the extent to which the theme of Black Lives Matter has relevance to the experience of spiritual practitioners of color, and also spiritual practitioners that happen to be white or from various ethnicities. So this is a wide, expansive learning community open to people. And I want to emphasize, because oftentimes people believe that we are not diverse, but we have people from Europe and Canada and even South Africa that are all different colors and background, because they are seekers. They want to understand the extent to which our history has not included, for whatever reasons, the presence and contributions of people of color. And people want to rectify that. People want to be told and exposed to the true facets of history. And if I can, in some small way, help with that, I am certainly open to how the universe and spirit would like to use me.
How admirable. Thank you so much. I'm really getting the, like the gist and the, momentum that you're building, which is why I'm always so happy to, mention this and make sure that we are, really spreading the word about what you're doing, because it is absolutely valuable.
Thank you.
And as we see here, you got a comment from our dear friend Carmen. Thank you so much for joining us. She says, thank you so much for sharing everything that you're doing and your resources with us.
Thank you, Carmen.
And what's very interesting is that you were talking about, this doctor who is professed in religion and then conducting studies in spirituality. So for you personally, where does the intersection, or do they intersect, those two particular realms?
That's an interesting question. And I would like to answer your question in terms of my own experience. And that is, I grew up in a household where the intersection of spirituality and religion was uh, not at all separate. You know, I grew up with a grandmother who was equally an Anglican or Episcopalian, but then would also uh, light candles, was a seer in her own right, um, used dreams to analyze present day and past problems. So I grew up in an atmosphere where religion and spirituality were very much intertwined. So that when I would hear such things as people that had a spiritual uh, proclivity or understanding are seen as worshiping the devil or doing evil things, it was hard for me to understand that because, again, my own background and experience was that these two very important life experiences were very intertwined. intertwined. And in talking to Dr. Gilry, it also is something that is very fundamentally part of the African American and Afro, uh, larger African diaspora experience, where there's intertwinement of both things. If you look at some of the history, especially in West Africa, though a person might be Muslim in terms of the religion, there are many things that were associated with their ethnicity or with the ethnocultural system and environment that they lived in that were very much intertwined with being Muslim. Also, the same thing with being a Christian, that there were various cultural aspects that were very much involved with their Christianity. You see it, it's interesting enough, also in Cuba. I've had the wonderful opportunity to visit there, and outside of Havana is a town called Regla, Regla, that was founded by a Nigerian man who had a great deal of understanding of spirituality and religion. And if you go to some of the churches there, the first of all, it's a town full of mediums and intuitive people, and they're selling their wares all around, at least when I went there several years back. But in the churches, the various saints are depicted with a Black countenance. Okay. And at the same time, in this town where this gentleman founded, there is a museum with all of the different orishas that are part of Ife. Many will know that that's the, shall we say, cultural and religious uh, practice of many people in West Africa. However, for some, there is a relationship between some of the orishas and also some of the Catholic deities. Now, it's not all one-on-one, but I do want to mention for some, for example, the Orisha Yemaya, who is the mother of us all. She is related, or for some, as being the beloved mother, the mother of Jesus. So you see the connection. It's a beautiful mosaic. I personally feel it's a beautiful mosaic that offers us the face of cultural, ethnocultural identity of people, this amalgam, this mixing of both religious and spiritual facets.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, that's like the process I'm in right now of integrating the religion and spirituality, doing that fluid with it. Because for me, I've been raised strictly religion in the Christian faith, so with the devil and Jesus and God external type of thing. And then I made a shift to spirituality and started to go within and started to discover the God within me and also discovering more about myself. So in the process of doing that portion of spirituality, I started resenting the whole Christianity thing. I'm like, for me, like it's BS. It's like this, like there's so much not truth to it and all those other things. And it came to a point like even resenting the teachings of Jesus. And like every time I hear the teachings of Jesus, whenever I hear the teaching, it just brings me into my heart space. But I was even resenting that. But like now I'm integrating back the religion aspects, and like there's some powerful messages in Christianity and any religion out there. And even spirituality is powerful messages, but then it gets distorted a little bit with the egoic portion. You can tell when the ego starts to slither in to any spiritual practice or religion. So then you hear this, like, when I feel like you got to do this or else. It's like a parent. and as I'm integrating, I laugh at it now because it's like an infinite being as God. You feel like God needs you to obey him or whatever, or he's not going to give you love. Sounds a little bit conditional. Sounds a little bit conditional love, instead of unconditional love. And even like a lot of spiritual practices that I was a part of too is like the same thing. Do this practice. This practice is the best practice to do out there. And I was, oh yeah, okay, it's the best one. But then I started questioning it. And that's another test. Is like when you question whatever practice you're doing, like whoever you're learning it from, if you question it and they can't handle the question, you should probably walk away.
Absolutely.
So what's great is that I love the stance that you're taking in terms of education. This is, just like you were talking about earlier, education, communication, building community. These seem to be really powerful tools. And we've got some set. Oh, we've got a comment from, is this Abby?
Yeah.
Hey, Abby. Abby says, very interesting. This is very on point with something I'm going through, loves. My beloved family is very religious, claims our spirituality is evil and wrong, and I would love to learn from religion nonetheless. So I believe in God, that God is unconditional love. God's love is unconditional.
So agree with it. And I do think that one of these days we're going to tackle this theme in our mediums of African ancestry, because I do think that for some people there's still a sense that spiritual practices are evil or devil's worship, or that in some ways we are anti-Christian or anti-Christianity. And I really think that that's not what we're about. I'm respectful of most religions, especially the ones that are grounded in a love, grounded in love of oneself, and understanding that first and foremost that God, or whomever you see as God in your life, or whomever you see as your higher power, resides within us, must reside within us, and that we must open ourselves up to that God within, and hopefully work towards increasing it and expanding it, so that we can, in a very special way, live in a godly, like, shall we say, fashion, in a fashion that espouses love, a fashion that espouses the fact that we are part of a human family, and that you, Kai and Dell, you are my brothers and sisters, and that I should see you in that way, not just, even if you have, for example, very differing views than me, that there still is a fundamental love that we should have for one another and caring for one another. And unfortunately, I think people who encapsulate us in being evil or doing devil's types of work are missing that point, that very important point. I think that was also very much part of the life of Jesus Christ, that love for one another, that caring for one another, and that in many ways Jesus Christ's teachings were quite revolutionary, because as you know, he broke down the artificial barriers between people. With Christ, there was not classism, there was not racism. He loved the prostitute just as much as he loved the people that were higher status. He loved the dark-skinned people, and many believe that Christ was a dark-skinned person too, but perhaps that's another conversation. But in the Bible they said he had hair like lamb's wool, so that's definitely hair like mine, although I lock it, but if I let it go, it definitely would be a lamb's wool. But put that aside, if we look at the life of Christ, it was very revolutionary. And I would imagine, I can only imagine that for some of his disciples, well, let's put it this way. Many believe Jesus possessed the faculty of mediumship, of trance, all of these different things. And he surrounded himself with disciples that were able to offer the energies towards his practice in mediumship and trance and so forth. If you look at the Bible, and please believe me, I'm not an expert in this, but some of the stories that I grew up with make me wonder about certain things. Now, when they were in the storm, I don't know if you remember, Christ is in the storm with some of his disciples, and it was a horrible storm. And the disciples were like, "Oh, wow, this is bad. Oh my God, the boat was rocking, and it was just awful. And apparently, through this storm, Christ was sleeping. And I guess I'm only guessing, but I know if I would have been there and you and Kai and Dell were there, I would say, wow, this guy is sleeping and he's supposed to be the leader of the group. And what are we going to do? Blah, blah, blah. And, one wonders whether or not he was in some type of trance state. Yes. Was he in some type of trance state? Because he wakes up and he's got all this power, all this energy. And what does he say? Peace, be still. And the calmness of the waters and the calmness of this storm, it just happened. So, I have a lot of questions as the interrelationship between a number of these stories that we were raised in our Christian background, and the extent to which there may be, I'm not an expert, but there may be some intertwining and interrelationship between some of the spiritual practices that we are aware of and also Christianity.
Got it. Speaking on mute over here. I'll read some of these comments here. Abby says, thank you, beautiful souls. She says, feels like I'm in church. Yubelka says, sending love to you all. Good talk. Thank you so much. And she says, yes, calms the storm and walks on the water. Truly powerful. Amazing. So with that integration, Lorna, what does would you like to give us a peek into some aspects of your practice that you care to share?
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you so much. Mm-hmm. Well, I had a very long professional career in mental health and addictions, over 40 years, with a career trajectory that started out in line work with people, children, adolescents, adults, and moved up to line to senior level cabinet positions, both in New York State, New York City, and also here in New Jersey. And I'll summarize it. I did quite a lot of work in mental health and managing budgets. We were fortunate when I was director of 3 departments of psychiatry in New York City during 9/11, and we were very fortunate to receive what was called Project Liberty grants, and it was somewhere I think around $10 or $12 million. So, needless to say, I'm was very much involved in mental health and addictions, and also I taught in 3 graduate schools of social work. My background is in social work, and I continued to have my private psychotherapy practice in New Jersey to currently. So I do tend to separate the different practices I'm involved with. But somewhere I would say around 2008, 2009, I began to feel, with all this things that I was involved with, that something was missing. Something did not quite feel right in my life. And I've always been intuitive, and I've used my intuitive work and faculties in my psychotherapy practice and my work in mental health, because sometimes intuition is the only thing that you have to be able to deal with crisis situations. And I worked in psychiatric emergencies and mobile crisis units as well. But anyway, something's missing, and I went on an exploration of where this need that something was missing could be addressed. And I joined a group of women on telephone, by the way, because at that time we didn't have all of the Zooms and Skypes and all that. And the women were from all different walks of life in Canada and Europe and so forth. And it was organized by this woman who was a shaman, a medium, an intuitive, and she helped us develop. It was a weekly circle, and via telephone, she forced us to develop our faculties with the understanding that everything is energy, and that we would be able to tune into that energy even on the telephone. So when Zoom came up and everybody was complaining that face-to-face wasn't good and effective, I was saying, wow, I feel like I've died and gone to heaven because I'm only used to the telephone. So between the work that I did with her, and also I did some work with a gentleman who is now passed over in numerology, which is also of interest. And he also helped us to develop our psychic skills with the numerology. So between those 2 things, I still continued my search and ended up going to Omega one Friday evening and participated in the workshop. And the workshop leader, there were about 200 people there, and I was delayed in getting there. And when I got there, he came off the stage to me as I tried to creep in very quietly. And he said, "You are going to be transformed this weekend. You have something special." And in many ways, he told the truth and prophesied, because that next day we participated in a meditation. And in the meditation, whatever it was, it helped to really, I think, consolidate and just put forth the mediumistic skills that were there, that just needed to be born, because it was just like taking a breath. And the woman that I worked with, offering her this mediumistic reading with her husband who had passed, I remember it to this day, and we remain in contact because she was my first. And it just evolved from that, with me going to classes and study. And as I progressed in mediumship and healing, I also was told to look into trance. And so I took some classes in trance. I had a year-long mentorship, although my teacher tells me I was really an apprentice, not it wasn't a mentorship, because she told me, and I say this with humility, she said, Lorna, you were born to do this work. This is in you. And so I spent a year with her in trance healing. And so I've been working in those facets since then, and blessed to be able to do it. So blessed.
Amazing. You got some love from Julie. Thank you so much for being here, Julie. And wow, what a journey, Lorna. What a journey. And if you don't mind me asking, like, what was it that compelled you to just keep going?
Well, that's a good question. I believe what propelled me to keep going had to do with the fact that clearly I was told and was taught that the fundamental reason that we practice mediumship is to serve. We are servants of both the spirit world and also those in the physical world, and also to ourselves, because service and being helpful is something very much intrinsic in my own identity and my own DNA. So that's one thing. The other thing is the actual practice of the mediumship, or the intuitive work, or soul to soul readings, or the trance. The practice of it was something that filled my soul, made me feel good, made me have a sense of purpose, a sense of validation. So if anything, I would say what propels me is the work of doing it, the work of experiencing it, the work of helping others, and of course, the work of being of service to spirit, those in spirit, and the people, the clients, the sitters, we call them, that are here. And I think the history is essential. That propels me. And I don't mean to repeat myself, but I think that this is such an important aspect of the reason that I've been moving towards this. My background and experience in mental health, I did quite a bit of work in cultural issues, cultural competence, cultural humility, the extent to which the understanding of a person's cultural context is essential in understanding them, who they are. And most importantly, the extent to which the practitioner or the doctor or the therapist or whomever, that they must understand their own cultural context, because that context that is very much part of them, that invisible lens that is in front of them when they see their patient or their client, is essential in them being effective practitioners. So that when they see Dell, they don't see angry or potentially murderous black man. They see a gentleman, a handsome gentleman, may I say respectfully, Kai, a handsome gentleman with a lovely countenance that's coming for an evaluation or is coming for help. That the presupposition that every black man is a criminal is something that people who are not culturally competent, that don't understand their own self-knowledge and their own context. If they don't understand that, then they're not going to be effective in treatment. So that was my background and experience, 40 years plus. I thought mistakenly that when I had my spiritual practice, that I would not be involved with this background. But Spirit had another idea. Spirit wanted me to use that information that I researched and presented on for many years, use that in enhancing the spiritual practices of those people who are mediums and psychics and so forth. Now, oftentimes, I'm going to say this, and I call it spiritual bypassing. Oftentimes, I hear people when I talk about some of these things, oh, she's being too political, or she shouldn't bring politics into this work because we're spiritual and we're all about love, light, and blessings. Well, I will tell you that there's a reason, there has to be a reason, that there isn't an ample selection of people of color in lots of the classes and workshops and so forth that are sponsored around mediumship, and that there is a paucity of people of color that are coming in to benefit from the many opportunities lie in receiving mediumship, receiving intuitive readings, receiving soul readings, tarot. There's a reason for that. And I don't think, you see, a lot of people say, well, Black people are not interested in that because they feel it's against their religion. Well, I'm not so sure about that. I think that oftentimes takes people who are foremost in spiritual practices, that are at the head there as tutors and trainers, and have big businesses in this type of work. It takes them off the hook in not seeing that welcoming people of color, whatever that means, welcoming people of color to their practice, to their learning, to their workshops, is something that is indeed a service that Spirit wants us to do. If Spirit only wanted white people to be spiritual practitioners, why give the skill and the faculty to a Black girl like me, who is just a Black girl from the Bronx?
I love how this is all coming full circle, right? Which makes me want to ask you just another leading question, right? And that is, with all of that said and done, how are you able to maintain unconditional love for your community, for the people who you serve, for everything that's going on in the world?
Shall I say, I feel as though I am a work in progress, because I'd be less than honest if I said to you that I emanate love, or I experience love for all people. In situations in which I find myself where people are not acting in a loving way towards me, and you'd be surprised that happens more often. Not that I'm perfect, not that I'm a great person, but I do try to be loving towards people generally. But for example, I would say in the last maybe 5 or 6 months, when I tried very hard to explain the meaning of Black Lives Matter on my Facebook page, I was met with quite a bit of rancor, quite a bit of such horrific things that I won't even mention here. Now, at first, I felt my role was to continue to educate, as we talked about, with facts. With facts. I am open to the factual history of and present day experience of African Americans in the United States. And if we look at any aspect, whether it's employment, education, the criminal justice system, healthcare, mental health care, if we look at any of those things, we can step by step look at the large disparity in the way Black people are treated. Even as recent, and I did post this that the experience of Michael Brown and George Floyd and so many of those people that had, shall we say, in many respects, minor crimes, cashing a check that was supposedly a bad check, and to end up dead. It's hard to believe. Or Trayvon, who is walking down, eating some candy, and he ends up dead. And the list is just it goes on and on and on and on. But what I'm trying to say is we look at those people and how they were treated by our criminal justice system and juxtapose it to this woman recently who was part of this riot and horrible coup d'etat, some say, against our nation's capital, stole the computer from Nancy Pelosi's office, and allegedly was going to sell that computer to the Russians. Allegedly, I don't know if it's true. I'm not in the criminal justice system, but apparently the computer was found on her person in some way. And if I'm wrong, let your viewers correct me, because I'm open to correction, critique, and so forth. But anyway, this woman who was part of this coup d'etat, this riot, this affront to our democracy and in some respects to the world, when she came up before the judge, she was let go to the care of her mother. And more recently, I heard she's applied to the court to go on vacation in Mexico. I don't know if she will be permitted, but you see, we juxtapose how the criminal justice system took care of these gentlemen that I mentioned, and we don't want to forget Breonna Taylor, that horrific situation where she's minding her own business in her home, and they broke in and was shot her, and her boyfriend was arrested, I believe, but let go. So we'll see what happens with Breonna. But compare these, I'm not going to be so long-winded, compare these situations with this woman who did the awful thing of riot, coup d'etat, 5 people dead, stole a computer, wrecked the place, and she was let go. So you see, we have a lot of work to do, Kai. We have a lot of work to do in this nation. And this is part of what propels me. This is part, you asked that, the injustice, the lack of fairness, these are the things that propel me to keep going and going and going, and not to see my retirement from public service as sitting on the porch and having a glass of iced tea.
Well put, Lorna. What an amazing conversation, and your stories, your journeys, the anecdotes that you accrue are always so inspiring. Cannot thank you enough for being here and having this important conversation.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're
so
welcome.
Yeah.
And people may find you. Where would you like people to find you?
I would say my website, and they can also have an opportunity to see a little bit more about me. I'm not all fire and, may I say, being a badass that I've been accused of, but I'm an author. I'm working on a book. You'll, if you go to my website, you'll see some of my poetry. And that website is www.lornajhines.com. Lorna J. Hines is my name. And you can send me a note or be in touch. I hope you'll take a look at the Mediums of African Ancestry site on Facebook. We're also on Instagram. And same thing, Mediums of African Ancestry. And those of you that are interested in the content and also interested in being part of a dynamic learning community, I hope you will consider joining us.
Amazing. And that website has also been scrolling across the bottom of the screen, so you can catch it there for the spelling as well. It is amazing to be with you during this time, Lorna. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for everyone who's watching. Julie, Carmen, Abby, Juju, everyone who is here with us live. We appreciate your comments as always. And
Stay magical.
Thank you, everyone.